Hi there, I'm Shelley Gray and welcome to this support video for the DivisionStation. So most likely you've arrived here through a link in a PDF file, probably that you purchased on Teachers Pay Teachers. If so, that's wonderful. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. Along with reading through that file, this is really going to make you feel a lot more comfortable with the DivisionStation. If you've just arrived here through YouTube and you're not sure what this is about, this is a support video for an existing resource called the DivisionStation. The ideas in this video might help you out, but it's more for the people who are already using this resource. If you are interested in looking at it, the link is down below. Anyways, first things first, if you have previously used the multiplication station in your classroom or my addition station as well, probably a lot of this information is going to be repetitive. So honestly, if you've used those programs with success already, I don't even think you need to watch this video. The DivisionStation is set up the exact same format, in the exact same format as the multiplication station. So if you haven't used any of those resources, then I urge you to watch this video right through, as I will be giving you basically a big overview of the DivisionStation and what it is and how it can be used in your classroom. So first of all, just a little bit of background. In my first year teaching, I was trying to figure out how I was going to teach the multiplication facts. I had a diverse classroom with a grade 3 and 4 class, so I had students at all different levels and I had no idea how I would meet the needs of all those students. So I created what I then called the multiplication box, which was just a leveled system that students could move through at their own pace to learn their multiplication facts. It worked amazingly well. I refined it over several years, made it better and better, changed the order that I taught the facts in, and currently thousands of people throughout the world are using the multiplication station with great success. So the DivisionStation is basically a spin-off of the multiplication station. The format is the same, the concepts are very, very similar, and it uses the exact same approach as the multiplication station. So this program is designed to be highly motivating, highly engaging, and ensure success for all of the students in your class because they will be working at a speed and at a pace that is just right for them. So before I go into the nitty-gritty of how to set up the DivisionStation, I first of all want to just give you a big overview of what this is going to look like in your classroom. So basically the DivisionStation is a box. It's a box of file folders, and each folder contains activities that the students will work through in a strategic order. So they work through leveled activities in an order that makes practical sense. So first of all, they will work through the ones facts, and then the twos, then they'll move on to the fives and the tens, and I'll explain more about that order a little bit later. But what they're going to do is they're going to go to a folder, they're going to get an activity, complete the activity, go get an answer key from that same folder, self-check their work, make any necessary corrections, mark their assessment tracker, and begin the next activity. Everything is student run. You will be doing no marking, no taking care of where students are. This is set up so that students are in charge. They are taking responsibility for their own learning. Now at the end of every level, students are going to come to you for a test. And this is just a quick oral quiz. I'm going to talk more about that oral quiz in a couple of minutes. Essentially, kids are doing everything here. They're self-monitoring and they are moving at a pace that's perfect for them, as I mentioned earlier. So it all is very simple. It's basically a whole bunch of file folders, a whole bunch of activities, and students are going through that at their own pace. So why is it so motivating? Well, when I create a lesson or create an activity, I keep three major words in mind, and those words are power, fun, and freedom. In my experience, when students have power, fun, and freedom, or one of those, or all three is even better, they are engaged. Those are the things that lead to student engagement. So in this station, students do have power and freedom. They have power and freedom to choose how fast or slow they're going to work. They have the power and the freedom to get their own activities, to self-check their activities. I mean, they're truly in charge of their own learning. So that is power and that's freedom. The activities are also fun. So those 3 words, that's why this system is so engaging to students. Now, in the years that I used the system, I literally never had a student not want to do it. And I actually had students begging me to do, at that time I was using DivisionStation all the time. Even students that normally were not engaged in math class were asking to do it. So that really says something. Now, since I've had other, thousands of people using this system around the world, I hear the same thing over and over and over and over again. Their students love it and they just can't get enough. So that is what my goal is for you using this DivisionStation. I want you to be able to present this to your students in a way that they are so engaged that they want to do it all the time. It does not feel like work. It feels like fun. Okay, so just a couple of little notes to help you understand how this all works. So as I've mentioned already, students are going to move through levels at their own pace. Now the levels are not in regular numerical order. They don't go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 like that. They are in another more effective order. Now if you've used the DivisionStation, this is the exact same order that the multiplication facts are taught in. So the way that I do it is I go 1, 2, 5, 10, 11, 9, 4, 3, 6, 7, 8, and then 12s. Now, don't worry about writing that down because it's all done for you in the DivisionStation. Now, the reason that I do that order is because students learn the easiest facts first. When they get to the very end, there are barely any facts to learn. Because, for instance, when a student learns, let's say, 12 divided by 2 equals 6, they are learning that's a 2's fact, that's a divide by 2's fact, right? But in a roundabout way, they are also learning a 6's fact because they are going to learn that they can use fact families to make division easier. So they will realize that when they do 12 divided by 2 equals 6, they could also do 12 divided by 6 equals 2. So as they move through the levels of the DivisionStation, the facts that are left to learn get less and less and less. By the time they get to the 7s or 8s or 12s, there are barely any facts to learn. So that's why we want to set our students up for success. We want to let them learn all the easy ones first, and then challenge them a little bit at the end with the harder facts. Now each level it isolates the fact first. Whatever facts you're working with, you practice them in isolation. So that means that you are practicing only those new facts. So for instance, when your student moves on to the 5s level, at the beginning, the activities are going to isolate the 5's facts. So students will work only with the 5's for the first few activities. Then near the end, it integrates all of the previously learned facts. So for instance, let's say we're in the 5's. First of all, the activities will isolate those 5's. At the end, it will integrate all of the facts that the student has previously learned, which in this case would be the 1's and the 2's and the 5's. So every level includes isolation activities and integration activities, and they're usually called putting it all together. That's why I've called them at the very end of each level. So that's one big thing that you'll notice in the DivisionStation. Okay, let's talk about assessment. So within the DivisionStation, there are 2 kinds of assessment that you will be doing. There's formal assessment and informal assessment. Now let's talk formal assessment first. So at the end of every level, when students finish the activity, they will approach you and ask for a test. Now this is a very, very informal test. I actually haven't provided you with any materials for the test simply because I want you to keep it as informal as you possibly can. So the test, basically what it is the student approaches you and you ask them what level they need a test on, and you just ask them their facts and you observe how they answer. So if a student finishes the 2's, then he comes to you and asks for a 2's test. You're just kind of going to whip through the facts. So, you'd say 12 divided by 2 24 divided by 2, 18 divided by 2. What I like to do is just write all the numbers on a scrap piece of paper on my desk and just kind of fly through them in a random order. Now you are looking to see if your student has automaticity, meaning that they know the facts automatically, and also you're looking for strategy knowledge. So are they using the strategies that you are teaching them and that they're practicing in the DivisionStation? Now this is where you might have different expectations for different students. So for instance, with some of your top students, yes, you're going to expect that they can answer those division equations within, 2 or 3 seconds. Now for other students, they might take a little longer, but you might notice that the wheels are turning, that they're really thinking about the strategies. And for that student, that unique student, that might meet your expectations for him or her. So remember that your expectations are going to be different for all students. So for some, if they do not meet your expectations for that test, there's no negative consequence. You simply say, you know what, I think you just need a little bit more practice with some of those facts. Go back to your table, practice a little bit with some flashcards, and then come back when you feel a little bit more ready. And there's nothing negative that happens. If they come back to you and they still are just not quite where you want them to be, nothing negative again. They just go back, they practice a little bit more, and come back to you when they're ready for another test. So I really want to urge how informal this needs to be. It needs to be informal. You don't need your students developing test anxiety or anything like that at all. Now, speaking of test anxiety, I have told this story in a couple of my other videos, so bear with me if you've already heard it. But one year when I was doing the multiplication station, I'm sorry, I know this is a DivisionStation video, but I just want to talk about my previous experience. I had one student who did have quite bad test anxiety anytime that he would come to me and ask for a test. And I mean, he had nothing to worry about. He was a top student, but he just got really anxious. So what I did with him is we walked the halls as I would ask him his questions for that level. Just 30 seconds down the hall, ask him about 10 or 12 questions, and he would get them all right, of course, and we'd be done. And for him, that worked. It alleviated his anxiety, just being able to walk and talk at the same time. So if you have students that do get anxious, please find something that works for them, because you don't want them to be anxious and dread every time that they need a test. That's no fun for anyone. Now, the test should take no longer than about 2 minutes. It's very quick, very informal. You're just checking for those things that I talked about, and then you move your students on to the next level. Okay, and the other kind of assessment is informal assessment. Now, informal assessment, I actually believe, is more important than formal assessment because it drives your instruction. So your informal assessment might simply be walking around the room while the kids are working on this and making observations. And I've included some assessment trackers in this package that you can use to take notes on if you wish. So you are looking for students who might be struggling or challenged with a certain level, and this is actually going to guide your mini lessons. So if you see 3 students that are struggling with dividing by 5, you could take those 3 students aside and do a short mini lesson with them to address any misunderstandings, and then let them work. If you see that the entire class is kind of struggling with dividing by 9, you might do a whole class mini lesson. So your informal assessment is the most important type of assessment because that is going to drive your future instruction, and that is going to tell you what your students know and what they still need to know to get where they need to go. Now, while we're on the topic of assessment, let's talk about the self-checking component of the DivisionStation. So as I mentioned before, students are responsible for self-checking their own work. Now, I highly recommend that you do this, that you allow the students to self-check their own work. First of all, if you take it all in and mark it for them, you are going to be spending way too much time marking, time that you already don't have, obviously, as you're a busy teacher. Now also, if you are marking all your students' work, they are not learning anything from that experience at all. You are, but they are not. So let them self-check their own work. This also provides an opportunity for them to get up and down out of their seats and get up get the answer key out of the file folder, come back to their desk. It gives them some power, as I talked about earlier, and it lets them see where they are going wrong. So the answer keys, I recommend mounting them on colored paper and then laminating them. For sure laminate them, because these will be used a lot by all of your students. Now, the reason that I mount them on colored paper before laminating is so that they stand out from all the rest of the activities in your box. You want the answer keys to be easily recognizable, and if you mount them on colored paper, they will be. So that's my recommendation to you. If you haven't found the answer keys yet, please look inside the zipped folder that you first opened. One file is called the DivisionStation. The other file has the answer keys in it. So that's where you will find those answer keys. Okay, let's talk about the strategies that you will see within the DivisionStation. So if you've used my multiplication station before, you will know that every level in that case had a different strategy with it. The DivisionStation isn't quite like that because with division, there's not as many strategies that are really, really effective. With division, the strategies that I've included in the station are relating to multiplication, using arrays, using equal groups, and reverse skip counting. So you will see all 4 of those strategies integrated throughout the station. Now there is one of those that is the most effective and the most efficient for finding the solution to a division equation, and that is relating to multiplication. So I have tied that through the station a lot. You will notice at the beginning of every level actually is a review of the multiplication facts first. I've done that because I strongly believe that students need to know their multiplication facts before they tackle division. The 2 operations are just so intertwined that is really, really important. So you will see that strategy used primarily. And I've even covered a quick review of the multiplication strategy so that your students will refresh their memory that way as well before they move on to division. Okay, next topic is organizing. Organizing is really, really, really important. Just imagine that you have 25 students using the DivisionStation and taking materials out, putting materials back in. Imagine how disorganized it could get, even in one day, never mind 1 week. So you need to set really specific expectations for how you expect this to stay organized. Now, if you set these expectations, students can follow them, but you need to model and you need to tell them what you expect. So I will go over my expectations, and of course you can decide on your own, but in my folders, they are set up so that there's a letter number code on all the papers, which you probably already noticed as you skimmed through that file. Now I'm going to show you the 4C and 4D file folder. So this is 4C and 4D. Inside, you will find the 4C page, and on the other side, 4D. So they're double-sided, photocopy double-sided. I always fasten them with a paper clip, and then the answer keys can be found after. So I urge the students, I encourage them to put the 4C before the 4D. And I take the time to tell them why this is so important. So why is it so important to stay organized? Well, it's important because when you need to go get something, it will be in the correct spot. So I model and I allow the kids to practice everything that I expect. Now, please don't take anything for granted. So you are going to have to take the time to teach them about the letter number codes that you're using. So explain how 4C comes before 4D, and then after this there's 4E and maybe 4F for some levels. The paper clips, literally don't take this for granted. Some of your students might have never used a paper clip before, so you literally need to show them how it works. Show them how maybe they can slip one out of the package without taking the paper clip off. Show them, give them time to practice putting paper clips on. Show them how you expect everything to stay in the folder, and let them actually practice putting the folders back in the proper spot. If you set your expectations at the very beginning, this will be so much smoother for you. In the years that I've used these math stations, I actually never did go in and reorganize throughout the 3 months that we used it. There was no need to, because the students all knew exactly where things had to go, and that just happened on its own. So it is worth your time to set those expectations early on. Okay, so speaking of expectations, let's talk about introducing the DivisionStation. So what I like to do when I introduce the station is to introduce it in small groups of 4 to 5 students. So while I like to have the other kids working on centers, while I am with one group explaining how this is all going to work. And of course, I am really excited about it, because when I'm excited about something, my kids are excited about something. So be sure that you're excited, be sure that you're comfortable with this so that you can explain to your students how it's all going to work. Now, when you're introducing it in your small groups, give your kids a chance to do an activity out of it and to get their hands in there and see how it all works and try putting things back in and taking things out and self-checking. Give them the chance, in about a 20-minute session to do all of those things so that when you expect them to be working independently, they are ready for that. Now, just a couple other things that you can expect. So once you introduce this, you are still going to need to reinforce all of your expectations for probably about a week after you have students working independently. So you will still need to talk about all of your expectations throughout that week, because it just takes a little bit of time for everything to sink in. After that first week, you can literally expect to move from the role of teacher to the role of facilitator with respect to this station. Once your students know the routines, once they understand how everything works, they will literally be running this on their own. It's a student-run center. So it really is a wonderful thing to sit back and watch this all happening and all your students self-monitoring their learning, knowing where they need to be, what they need to do. It's just really a great thing. So you can also expect your students to be up and down throughout the time that they're working on the DivisionStation. So they are going to be getting up and down to get new activities, to get answer keys, and that's okay. That's actually really good, especially for your kinesthetic learners. It's a good thing to get up a little bit. But here's another instance where you need to reinforce your expectations. So students need to know that when they go up to get an answer key or get another activity, they go straight to the DivisionStation, get what they need, and sit back down. There's no stopping to visit with friends. No fooling around. It's just get your job done and get back to your seat. So this all needs to be reinforced, and you might want to implement logical consequences, such as if you do decide to stop and throw a pencil, then you lose your ability to get up and get your stuff next time. You'll just have to stay in your desk and wait till I have time to go get it for you. And quite honestly, no student wants to lose that ability, and I don't foresee those kinds of things happening in your classrooms at all. But should they happen, just be sure that you address them early on. Now, another thing that you can expect is that students will be asking you for a test throughout the time. Now, you're going to have to set expectations for that. If you're working with a small group, you might get them to wait 5 minutes and just practice their facts for a few minutes until you can get to them for a test. Now, as I mentioned before, a test is really short. It only takes 2 minutes max, probably less than that. So it's pretty easy to incorporate into your day. But that's just one more thing that you'll want to think about. You can also expect students to maybe ask if they can work in partners. This is up to your own discretion. I personally encourage partner work because I love hearing students talk about math, but it's just another instance where you need to have expectations and there are logical consequences. So if students are fooling around in partners, then of course, it's back to your seat and you're working alone. But if they chat about math, I honestly see that as a really good thing, and it can be a really good opportunity for partner work as well. So that's another thing that you'll want to think about before you get started. Now, in closing, I do just want to mention that nothing works for everybody. So this system has been very successful for me and very successful for many people, but it might not work for you. And honestly, it would just be a teaching style, difference if it doesn't. So if this doesn't appeal to you, you can still use everything in this file and use it as you see fit without doing the entire program. I will say that I think you'll get better results if you do the program as it is presented, but I mean, really, that's up to you. You need to do what works for your students. So I hope this has been helpful. Please read through the PDF file as well before you get started. And I do urge you, when you're preparing the station, take a couple hours in the evening or on a weekend and just get it all finished. It is a little bit of an undertaking. It will take you a few hours, it will, but it will be so worth it. Just think, this station will last you for 2 to 3 months most likely in your classroom. So once you've got this prepared, you've basically got one center activity complete for the next few months. So it is worth it. And also, you don't want to have to be running to the photocopier just in case, if a student moves on to a level that you haven't copied yet. That's just a pain. So I really urge you to take a couple hours, just sit down, do it, get it finished, and that will give you a better understanding as well before you present it to your students. So I hope this support video has been helpful for you. Thank you so much for trying out this system. I wish you huge success with it, and I hope your students absolutely love it and are engaged in Division like they have never been before. Please feel free to contact me and let me know how you're making out with it through my Facebook page or my website. That would be fantastic. I would love to hear from you. Thank you so much and have a wonderful day. Good luck.